So recently, sorry, hello to the free world. So recently I watched Frankenstein 1931, and I have to say it was very disappointing. Now, I've read the original book, and it's been a while since I've read it, but even from the bits that I remember, Frankenstein 1931 was an absolute failure when it comes to bringing the original idea to life. Now, I'll be the first to say that I don't really mind original stories being changed because I'm for, you know, race swaps, gender swaps, stuff like that when it comes to interesting ideas. But when you watch Frankenstein 1931 and you've read or you read the book, you realize that it didn't understand the original meaning of the story. Now, in the original story, Dr. Frankenstein creates a monster, but he abandons it, and he doesn't understand the responsibility he has for taking care for taking care of his creation, or understanding the fact that even though he could, it doesn't mean he should. Now, you can see bits of that in the movie, but it's not really as profound or as meaningful. Now, in the book, Frankenstein's monster is actually very intelligent. Well, it becomes very intelligent. And then it makes sense as to why it feels slighted and betrayed when it's attempting to be a person and be a good person, but is subjected to torture and bullying and things of that nature. But in the movie, it's really just an idiot. Also, I have a really big problem with the idea that a criminal brain is the reason why the monster was a bit of a failure, and even talks about an intelligent or smarter brain. It really bothers me for a lot of reasons. And maybe that's a discussion on the time. I'll have to do research about it because I did watch the movie for a school project. But again, let me continue. It's so in the movie, there's bits of the original meaning behind the story because, as you can see, the Frankenstein monster's first kill, it was in self defense, truly, and then the second one was also self defense, really, and then the third one was purely accidental because it didn't know what it was doing. But then when it tried to get rid of its creator, it wasn't accidental or because it didn't know what it was doing. It just simply did it because it was afraid and being hunted. It, it's just a failure on all parts because you can see someone trying to create something that's a real homage and a real love story, or I mean, a real love project to the original. It doesn't do anything great at all. And the ending, it's really like it's not anticlimactic, but it's really boring. They just end up burning the barn that Frankenstein's monster is in, and then that's just it. And also, Frankenstein himself gets thrown by the monster outside of the barn. He hits a windmill. It's an obvious dummy. I'm not gonna blame them for that. It's like 1931. I'm not gonna blame them for that. But you see him get thrown out of this barn. He hits the windmill. He rides it for a few minutes, and then he hits the ground. And he's just okay after that. And that's not even the real ending because they don't know how to end the movie. The real ending, after the monster is destroyed, killed, whatever you want to say, is when Frankenstein is back at his home. He's sleeping. He's sleeping off the injuries that has occurred to him, and people bring wine because they think it'll help him feel better. His father gets the glass. He talks about his mother. He pours up. He pours up a cup of wine and then he drinks it. That scene's removed. It's a bad ending. It's a bad retelling of the original story, and I understand that people want to try to do their own things with the story. And to be fair, this is early filmmaking, so I doubt that people wanted to. I doubt that people wanted to do anything spectacular or amazing, and I really doubt anyone would have belief in how well, in comparison, how grandiose the original story is to this. I doubt they had a good budget and all of that. But as the second, as the second film about the original book, there was one short film before this. It was a lot earlier, and I believe there were plays before this as well. As the second retelling in the film format, it had a very important and very specific job. And although maybe for the time it was good, it didn't. It didn't deliver on anything it was supposed to. Now I'm watching another one of the movies. I'm not watching Bride of Frankenstein. I want to though because it is in the same universe. It's owned by Warner Bros. And this is the and it's literally a sequel to it, and it's reviewed a lot better than normal Frankenstein. But I'm watching the 1994 movie right now, and it's very over dramatic. Movies it's around the time movies started to become a spectacle, and it's obvious it wanted. Well, I'll talk about it. I'll talk about it next time when I finish it. But yeah, basically, in short, the original Frankenstein 1931 movie, it is a failure on most accounts when you are discussing or you have read the book. But as a basic horror movie, it's pretty good, especially when you're talking about early film 1931. I believe because it was one of the first of its kind and is based on a classic of a book is the only true reason why it got as popular as it did and it was able to get a sequel. Because in all honesty, when you watch it and you separate it from the original book, you can see I really doubt that it's much more than a B movie, really, maybe even a C movie. Because it does a few things, but it's not really it's nothing special. It's nothing special at all. It's not really interesting. Maybe it is because of how old the movie is. You see, a lot of people call things basic when they're not basic ideas. They're really just old ideas that weren't basic at the time. Like if you read the book Invisible Man, you're like, oh, this is a pretty basic story, but it's interesting because it was probably one of the first books or written about an invisible person. But now we've got like Sue Reed, other invisible characters and whatnot. So yeah, it's a basic movie. I think it's very weak, and I was really disappointed when I watched it. So, what's a movie that really disappointed you? Did you think of Frankenstein if you watched it? Tell me.